The first time she asked me if I was comfortable, I thought she meant the chair. That's the thing I keep circling back to now. How ordinary it sounded. How casual. Like something you'd ask a stranger without thinking twice. But the way she said it made the room feel smaller, like the air had shifted just enough for me to notice. I was leaning over the counter at the repair shop, elbows pressed into old laminate, the smell of dust and warm metal hanging around us. A radio murmured somewhere behind the shelves, some afternoon talk show neither of us was really listening to. I'd come in to fix my laptop. Cracked hinge, loose screen, nothing dramatic. I was just killing time on my lunch break. She stood on the other side, reading the intake form I'd filled out too quickly. Mid-40s, maybe older, but not in a way that felt fragile or fading. More like settled, like she knew exactly where she took up space. Her hair was pulled back loosely, not styled, not careless either. Glasses low on her nose. Sleeves rolled just enough to show her wrists when she typed. She didn't rush. That alone felt unusual. "So," she said, tapping the paper once, then looking up at me. "Are you comfortable?" There was a pause after it. Not long, just long enough. I shifted my weight, suddenly aware of how I was standing. Too close to the counter, maybe, or not close enough. I glanced at the chair she meant, the one customers usually waited in. Yeah, I'm fine." She nodded, but didn't look away right away. Her eyes stayed on me, like she was checking something beyond my answer. Then she turned slightly, adjusting the chair anyway, pulling it out a few inches. "If you want to sit," she added. Sometimes people don't realize they're tense until they stop standing. I laughed, a short sound that surprised me. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled, just a little. Not the kind you give to be polite. More like she'd already decided something and didn't need my agreement. "It usually is." I sat. The chair creaked under me, and I suddenly felt too aware of my knees, my hands, the way my foot bounced once before I forced it still. She moved behind the counter, fingers moving with practiced ease as she opened my laptop, angling the screen toward the light. Up close, I noticed things I probably shouldn't have been cataloging. A faint line near her mouth that deepened when she focused, a thin silver ring on her right hand, no other jewelry. She smelled like soap and coffee, not perfume. "So what happened to it?" she asked, still looking at the screen. "Dropped it," I said. "Stairs. Long story." She tilted her head. "They usually are." Another pause. The radio crackled. Someone laughed in the back room. She reached for a cloth, wiped the screen slowly, like there was no reason to hurry. When she handed it back to me for a second, just to show me something about the hinge, our fingers brushed. It wasn't dramatic. Barely contact. But she stilled, just for a beat. "Sorry," she said, though I wasn't sure what for. It's okay." Her eyes flicked up to mine then. Held. Not searching. Not apologetic. Just present. And for a strange second, I felt like she could see the noise in my head. The way I was suddenly too aware of how young I sounded when I spoke. How carefully she chose her words. She stepped back, clearing her throat. "It'll take a couple days. You can pick it up Thursday." "Yeah, sure." I stood, too fast this time. She watched me fold the claim ticket, tuck it into my wallet. When I turned to leave, she said, quieter now, "If anything feels off when you get it back, tell me. Don't just live with it." I nodded, not trusting my voice. I didn't think about the laptop again that day, or the repair, or the chair. I kept thinking about the way she asked if I was comfortable, and how I still wasn't sure what she meant. I went back on Thursday like she said, but the truth is I'd been thinking about it since Tuesday. Not in a way that made sense. Just little flashes. Her voice when she said comfortable. The way she didn't rush me out the door. How the shop felt quieter after I left. It was raining when I came in this time. Not heavy, just enough to darken the pavement and make everything smell like metal and wet cardboard. The shop was dimmer than I remembered. Lights low, one lamp on near the back table. She was alone. She looked up when the door chimed, and for a second I wondered if she'd recognize me. She did. "Oh," she said, and there it was again. That pause, like she'd almost said my name but stopped herself. "You're early." "Sorry," I said automatically. "I can come back later." "No." She shook her head, already reaching for the shelf behind her. "It's fine. I just... She stopped, then exhaled through her nose. I like when it's quiet. I stood there, rain dripping off my jacket, feeling like I'd stepped into something private. She gestured toward the counter, and I went over, noticing how she rubbed her thumb against her palm before opening my laptop. A nervous habit, maybe, or just tired. Up close, she looked worn. Not in a bad way. More like someone who carried things without setting them down. There were faint shadows under her eyes. Her laugh lines seemed deeper today, like she'd used them too much recently. You do this all yourself? I asked, watching her tighten a screw, careful, precise. Most days. She shrugged. It's easier that way. Doesn't it get heavy? She glanced at me, something sharp flickering there. Then it softened. Only when I let it. There was a silence after that. Not awkward. Dense. She handed me the laptop, our fingers not quite touching this time. I noticed how steady her hands were, steadier than mine. I set it on the counter, tested the hinge, nodded. Thanks, I said. Really? She leaned back against the desk, crossing her arms loosely. You're welcome. Another pause. She looked like she wanted to say something, then didn't. Instead, she asked, You always come in on your lunch break. Yeah. That's a long walk in the rain. I don't mind. She smiled at that. A real one. Brief, but warm. Then it faded just as quickly, like she'd remembered something. You should go, she said gently, before it gets worse out there. I zipped my jacket, hesitating. If you ever need help with something, lifting, or I live nearby. She stiffened. Just slightly. Enough for me to notice. That's kind, she said. But I'm okay. I nodded, embarrassed, already halfway turned away when she added, quieter, almost to herself, still thank you. I paused at the door. Looked back. She was watching me. Not smiling. Not guarded either. Just tired. And for a second, I had the strange sense that she wanted me to stay, and wanted me gone even more. The bell chimed as I left. But the sound that followed me home was her voice, soft and unfinished, like something she hadn't meant to let slip. The power went out around 8. Not the whole block, just the shop. 1 second the overhead lights hummed. The next, everything dipped into a soft, humming dark. The rain outside had turned heavier, tapping insistently against the front glass like it was trying to get in. She swore under her breath. Not loud, almost fondly. Breaker's been acting up, she said, already reaching for a drawer. Storms don't help. I should have left. I knew that. It was late. The sign on the door already flipped to closed, my jacket hanging uselessly on the back of a chair because I'd told myself the rain would pass. Instead, I stood there holding my phone up while she fumbled with a flashlight that refused to turn on. Here, I said, stepping closer, angling my screen so it lit the space between us. She hesitated, just long enough to register, then nodded. Thanks. The light caught her face from below, softer than the fluorescence. It made her look tired in a way that felt intimate, like I was seeing her without armor. She leaned over the counter, and I noticed how carefully she kept her distance, how her shoulders stayed tight even as she asked me to hold the light a little higher. You don't have to stay, she said, eyes still on the breaker panel behind the counter. I can finish this myself. I know. I didn't move. She smiled faintly at that, then stopped when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She froze. I watched her jaw tighten before she pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Sorry, she muttered, already turning away. I need to. She didn't finish the sentence. Just answered. Her voice changed instantly, quieter, flatter. I said I can't tonight, she said. A pause. No, because it's late. Because I'm working. Because I'm tired. Another pause. Longer this time. I don't owe you that. She ended the call without saying goodbye. For a moment she just stood there, back to me, phone still in her hand. The rain filled the silence. I looked at the floor, at the scuff marks on her shoes. Gave her space she hadn't asked for but clearly needed. I'm sorry, I said anyway. She turned, surprised. For what? For being here. I swallowed. If you want me to go. Her eyes searched my face, and for the first time, she didn't look guarded. Just worn down. Honest. No, she said softly. Stay? Just? She stopped herself, exhaled. Just don't ask me anything right now. I won't. We stood there together, the glow from my phone catching on her hands as she reached past me to reset the switch. Our arms brushed, not accidental this time. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. The lights flickered back on. She looked up at me then, too close to pretend it meant nothing. Her mouth opened, like she was about to say something she'd already decided against. Instead, she lifted her hand, hovering, uncertain, and for a second I thought she might touch my arm. She didn't. But she didn't step back either. We didn't talk about it the next time I came in. That was the strangest part, how carefully we avoided the shape of the thing between us. She kept her voice light, professional. I mirrored it, almost relieved to hide inside small talk about the weather, about how the hinge was holding up, about nothing at all. But the air felt wrong. Too tight, like the room was holding its breath. It was near closing again. Not planned, just how it kept happening. She was counting the register when I leaned against the counter, hands shoved into my pockets so I wouldn't do something stupid like reach for her. "You don't have to wait," she said without looking up. "I know." She sighed, closed the drawer, and finally met my eyes. The look on her face wasn't sharp this time. It was tired, resigned. "You keep saying that," she said. "And then you do." I didn't answer right away. I watched the clock on the wall tick forward, the second hand scraping softly as it moved. "I don't know what I'm doing," I said finally. "I think that's the problem." She blinked, like she hadn't expected honesty. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. "Neither do I," she said. Then, quieter, "And that scares me more than it should." Silence settled between us. Not heavy, exposed. She rested her hands on the counter, fingers spread like she needed the balance. "This can't be a thing," she said. Not firmly, almost like she was testing the words. "Whatever this is." I nodded. "I know. You're young," she added, quickly, like she needed to get it out before she lost the nerve. "You're supposed to be out there, not standing in a repair shop with someone who—" She stopped. Swallowed. "Who what?" I asked gently. She looked away, jaw tightening. "Who should know better?" The way she said it, like a verdict already passed, made something twist in my chest. I stepped back, giving her space, even though every part of me wanted to do the opposite. "I'm not confused about you," I said. "I'm confused about why this feels like something I'm not allowed to name." That got her. She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were wet, though no tears fell. She crossed her arms, then uncrossed them, like she couldn't settle into her own body. "This feels like a mistake I haven't made yet," she said. "And I'm already tired of apologizing for it in my head." We stood there, close enough that I could hear her breathing change, shallow, uneven. I wanted to say something reassuring, something brave. Instead, I stayed quiet. After a moment, she shook her head, a sad smile pulling at her mouth. "You should go." I hesitated. "If I go, does this stop?" She closed her eyes. "I don't know," she whispered. "But if you stay, I'm not sure I'll be able to live with myself." I didn't see her for almost 2 weeks. That alone felt like a statement, even though I knew it probably wasn't meant to be. I told myself I was being dramatic, that this was what she wanted: distance, quiet, a return to whatever normal was supposed to look like. Then she called. Not my phone. The shop's number flashed on my screen while I was at home, halfway through reheating leftovers I wasn't hungry for. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hey," she said when I picked up. Her voice sounded steadier than I expected. Too steady. "I know this is strange, but could you come by? Just for a minute." I didn't ask why. The shop looked different when I walked in. The lights were on, but the front blinds were half lowered, muting the street outside. She stood near the back table, not behind the counter this time. That alone made my stomach tighten. "Thanks for coming," she said. "I won't keep you long." She reached into a drawer and pulled out her phone. Hesitated, then pressed play and set it face down on the table between us. A man's voice filled the space. Older, warm, familiar to her in a way that didn't need explaining. "If you're listening to this, it means I've finally convinced you to keep things you don't need to anymore." A faint laugh. "I know you hate unfinished conversations, so here's mine." She didn't look at me while it played, just folded her arms, staring at a chip in the tabletop. "He left that before he died," she said quietly, over the sound of his voice. "Years ago. I found it last week." cleaning out a box I thought I'd already emptied. The message kept going, gentle, affectionate, painfully ordinary. A reminder to eat, to rest, to stop carrying things alone. I felt like an intruder and a witness at the same time. I wasn't supposed to feel anything, she continued. I already grieved him, or I thought I did. She finally met my eyes. But then you showed up, and it felt like I'd misplaced something, and suddenly it was right in front of me again. I swallowed. You don't have to explain. I do, she said. Not sharply. Honestly. Because it's not fair to you otherwise. She picked up the phone, stopped the recording before it finished. You don't remind me of him, she said. Not really. But you make the quiet louder. And that scares me. I nodded, the weight of it settling in my chest. I don't want to be a replacement. You aren't. Her voice cracked just slightly. That's the problem. We stood there, the air thick with something unnamed. She stepped closer, then stopped herself, hands curling into fists at her sides. I needed you to know, she said. So you could decide. Decide what? She looked at me then. Really looked, like she was bracing for impact. Whether staying away hurts less than staying close. I didn't answer right away. I just reached out, slowly, and placed the phone back in the drawer where she'd found it. Our fingers brushed. She didn't pull back. Neither did I. And in that quiet, unfinished moment, I understood that whatever this was, it had already changed us. We didn't fix anything after that. Not the way people expect stories to fix themselves. There was no clean decision, no line in the sand. Just a slow rearranging of gravity. I stopped finding reasons to come by the shop. She stopped pretending she didn't notice when I didn't. A week passed, then another, and somehow, the space between us didn't grow, it settled. Like something waiting to be named without being spoken. The next time we were in the same room, it wasn't planned. There was a power outage in my building, the kind that leaves you standing in a hallway with neighbors you don't know, holding your phone like it might explain things. I walked. I didn't even realize where I was going until the shop sign came into view, dark but familiar. She was inside. One lamp on. The door unlocked. She looked up and didn't ask why I was there. You okay? She asked instead. I nodded. Yeah. She nodded back. That was it. No explanations required. We sat on opposite sides of the counter at first. The radio was off. The city hummed faintly through the walls. She poured coffee she didn't offer me, then slid the mug across anyway, like the decision had already been made. I've been thinking, she said after a while, not looking at me, about how people assume clarity comes before action. I waited. I don't think that's true, she continued. I think sometimes you move first, and then you understand why. I traced the rim of the mug with my thumb. And sometimes you don't move, and still lose something. She looked at me then, not searching, certain. I don't want to lose this, she said. Neither did I. But what I said was, me neither. That felt like enough. She stood, walked around the counter, and sat on the stool beside me. Close, but not touching. Our shoulders almost met. Almost. This isn't simple, she said. I know. And it might hurt. I know. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, forehead resting briefly against her hands like she was bracing herself. Without thinking, I reached out and let my knuckles brush her wrist. Just once. A question. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand slightly, letting the side of her palm rest against mine. The contact was light, deliberate, steady. We stayed like that. No rush. No promises. Just breath and warmth and the quiet understanding that something had already crossed a line neither of us wanted to redraw. After a while, she exhaled and leaned her forehead against my shoulder. Not heavy, not clinging, just there. Outside, the streetlights flickered back on. Neither of us moved. And in that stillness, without saying the word or asking permission, we chose each other. Not loudly, not forever, but enough. I'm telling this from a quieter place. Not because everything worked out neatly. It didn't. But because the noise inside me finally softened enough to hear what mattered. Time passed. Real time. The kind where days blur, and then, suddenly, something small reminds you of who you were before things shifted. We didn't announce anything. We didn't explain ourselves to people who hadn't earned the explanation. The shop stayed the shop. I didn't start hanging around like before. She didn't ask me to. What changed wasn't visible. It was in the way she stopped apologizing mid-sentence. In the way I stopped treating every feeling like a problem to solve. We learned each other slowly, carefully, like you learn the weight of something fragile by holding it without gripping. Sometimes we sat together after closing, not every night, not on a schedule. She'd drink her coffee until it went cold. I'd tell her about things I hadn't realized I'd been holding back, small disappointments, unfinished hopes. She listened without trying to fix me. That alone felt new. Once, I asked her if she regretted it. She didn't answer right away. Just looked out the window, where the streetlights washed everything in that soft yellow glow. No, she said finally. But I regret how long I thought wanting something meant I was weak. That stayed with me. I think love, real love, isn't the loud, cinematic thing we're taught to expect. It's quieter, heavier. It asks better questions than answers. It doesn't erase guilt or longing. It teaches you how to carry them without letting them steer. She didn't become younger. I didn't suddenly grow older. What happened instead was stranger and more honest. We met in the middle of who we already were. I learned that being drawn to someone doesn't always mean chasing them. Sometimes it means standing still long enough to be seen. She learned that letting herself be seen didn't undo her past. It made room beside it. We never promised forever, but we promised attention, care, the kind of presence that doesn't rush the ending because it understands the weight of beginnings. Every now and then, she still asks me, "Are you comfortable?" And every time, I answer more honestly than I used to. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?